All right, people, I've got kind of a choose your own adventure assignment for you here. I want you to pick one of these two movies. If you've seen one, go ahead and pick the one you've seen already. If you've seen them both, decide whether you need to watch it again or not. I think it's always a good idea to watch a movie again. You pick up different things, but hey, what do I know? And how am I actually going to know whether you watched it again or not? I'm not. So here's the deal. I'm going to read a little bit of the assignment to you because I like the way that it came out when I wrote it. Black Panther and The Matrix are two of the best action movies of the last 20 years. Full stop. Like, we could definitely talk about all of them, but Black Panther and The Matrix, okay, 21 years because it's 1999, whatever. Definitely two of the best action movies of all time. Two of the best movies of all time, not even action, but don't get me started. There's a lot of things that make action movies really great. The story, the graphics, camera work, sound, music, performance. I feel like we've covered a lot of that. Think back to when we looked at Mad Max, we looked at Raiders and, Spider-Verse. Like, those things had it all going, even though there were different layers of quality, even within those brilliant movies. These two movies, Black Panther and The Matrix, do all of that, but they also include, very importantly, a much more diverse cast than so many other films. Like, every other film had the option to choose to be more inclusive, and a lot of them didn't. As much as I love Raiders of the Lost Ark, that's a pretty much all white movie. Is Spider-Verse is very diverse. That's pretty good, much more modern. So I think that's kind of where things are going. Why they're doing that, that's kind of up to you to decide. I think it makes for a better movie. And as good as Mad Max Fury Road is, they definitely empower women, but it's still mostly a pretty white movie. But that being said, Black Panther and The Matrix, one from a couple of years ago, one from 20 years ago, really we're onto something. And I want you to decide if that diversity is part of what makes these movies great. I guess if you decide that they're not, I don't know what answer you're going to do, but I do have a couple of different choices for you. Both these films include men and women of various races as prominent characters, both good and bad. It doesn't necessarily just make women or Black women good necessarily, but it does include them on both sides. Black Panther is one of the best action movies of the last 5 years. It received 6 Oscar nominations, even won a few, which is pretty rare for action movies. Again, I don't think Oscars are like the be-all, end-all of like what makes a movie great, but when an action movie does get noticed for it, like Mad Max Fury Road did, and that movie kind of transcended being an action movie, all right? There's a big difference between just watching a lot of fun type of John Wick action or something with Vin Diesel in it, which is probably like a lot of fun, but not really, not a capital F film, whatever, important. I'm a snob, I get it, but you know what I mean. Like, there's movies for fun and there's movies that are kind of artistic. These movies kind of blur the line between both of them. So it was nominated for 6 different Oscars, including Best Picture, which not even The Dark Knight got nominated for that. And I'm going to throw down and say, like, The Dark Knight is probably the greatest comic book movie of all time. I know I've seen almost all of them, and I've seen Endgame and whatever. The Dark Knight is it. Okay, people, if you don't think so, go back and watch it. Come back to me and be like, with your argument, whatever. So that being said, what else did it win here? It won for musical score, costume design, and production, which is important because like that movie really transported you somewhere. Things that it didn't win: sound editing, sound mixing. Think about it this way. The movie that won, do you even know the movie that won the Oscar for Best Picture in that year? No, and I had to look it up too. And I saw the movie, and I love the Oscars, and I pay attention to those. It was Green Book, and who's still talking about Green Book? Because there were 4 other movies that year that were way better than Green Book and should have won. Don't get me started. Anyways, on top of that, this movie earned $1.4 billion worldwide, which is not crazy for an action movie, but it is, even within like Marvel movies, this is notable. Like, this is the 3rd biggest Marvel movie of all of them. And there's like 23 of them. The only 2 that were bigger were, as you probably guessed, Infinity Wars, which made $2 billion worldwide, and Avengers Endgame, which made $2.8 billion worldwide. So for this movie that's not necessarily crucial to all of the other movies in the Marvel franchise to make so much money, my question is why? Like, I know why, but like, why did this movie strike such a chord with people? Why was this such a profoundly important movie that transcended being a comic book movie or being a Marvel movie? Because it definitely did. That being said, Black Panther is really Like, it's celebrated. It's for positive, strong portrayal of black men and women. You can't watch this movie and not draw comparisons to, the King being like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Killmonger being like Malcolm X. They both were strong black leaders. They wanted the same thing in different ways. You've got, the King who wants to non-violently maintain their way of life, where Malcolm X is like by any means necessary, just like Killmonger, that kind of thing. I mean, it's definitely going on. It's not overdone. On the other side, you've got The Matrix, which is probably one of the most influential action movies of all time. There's a time when movies didn't look like The Matrix. They didn't move like The Matrix. They didn't have the bullet time and all that. You can go find a YouTube video that explains this pretty well. But The Matrix, like, it changed the game. It's tough to explain, like, how things have changed. Not even that, but like, it really opens people's minds to the idea of your own existence, Eastern philosophy, that kind of thing. Like, could we be existing in a simulation right now? Is this real? Can you prove it? A better question for my science fiction class, but I definitely have answers. I definitely have opinions on this, even if I don't like them. But, how do you know the world around you is real? So The Matrix did actually also win 4 Oscar nominations: visual effects, sound editing, film editing, and sound mixing, which makes sense because it is a movie that looks and sounds unlike anything else. But it also went up against some real heavy hitters like the Star Wars franchise and beat them that year, which is notable because every Star Wars movie that's ever been made has been nominated, and I think every one of them has won Oscars for their technical stuff, because that's one thing that they do. I mean, like THX and all of the movies and things you're watching and the sound you're getting at theaters was literally invented by George Lucas, who used those things or created it so he could make the movie he wanted. All right. So let's see. This movie didn't make as much money as Marvel, but it's also 20 years ago, $465 million. When you put that into perspective, this is really impressive, because when was the last time you watched a movie that wasn't a sequel or part of a franchise? And I know they're about to make the 4th Matrix movie, but before they did that, there was no Matrix. Keanu Reeves was kind of a mid-level star, and I know he's all that right now, and deservedly so, but you've got no huge marquee people in there. Lawrence Fishburne, Chad Pinkett, you've got Hugo Weaving. None of these are like huge movie stars, all right? And I get Carrie-Anne Moss, and I can name more people. You've got some kind of unknown directors, the Wachowski brothers. This movie kind of comes out of left field and blows people's minds, and it's hard to understate that before The Matrix, there wasn't a Matrix, obviously. So it is impressive that the movie made so much money and then spawned video games and all the other things or whatever. The other thing I would say about it is, like, there's definitely a case to be made that The Matrix is an allegory about gender identity, and we'll get more into that with the questions. And I hope that some of you choose to do that, even if it's not something that's on your radar. It's hard to watch that movie and then see some of the information about that and then not go, wow, that was like hiding in plain sight the whole time. So what I want you to do is I want you to pick one of these prompts, write about it, make a video about it, just engage your brain and respond to it, and then go from there. So that's what I'm looking for. I hope you enjoyed the films. I hope you've enjoyed film studies. I'm going to wrap up the semester in about a week and a half, about the end of May here. So if you've been watching these, I think you're watching these because you care about the class more than you do about a grade, unless you're just watching this one because I told you had to do a few, and then you're like, I'll do this one. That's fine. Either way, I'm glad you're watching. I miss you all, but I hope that we're feeling connected through some of these movies, because what better way to bond than over some powerful stories that exist beyond us. Take care.